What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 28 of the Block Exploring podcast. Here with me is Tommy, as always. And we're going to talk to you about everything that happened this past week and in the coming next few weeks in the crypto space. As always, Tommy and I, not financial advisors, so don't take our words as financial advice. And yeah, later on in this episode, we're going to be talking to you about ETFs, Reddit launching an NFT platform, and DAO registry in Wyoming, which is super interesting, and I'm super stoked to talk about it, Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
So, ETF approved. That's a mad step.
I think that's the biggest thing this whole week that's been driving this like huge bullish run that we've been on, with Bitcoin reaching all-time highs and also Ethereum reaching all-time high. Wait, did Ethereum reach all-time highs? Yes, it did.
There was an attempt, right?
Yeah, or it just touched it.
4.4.
It
Yeah,
just touched it.
it was slightly below it. I
Yeah,
think the state of the market was Bitcoin crossed 36K
yeah,
or 63K, sorry. And now there's a minor correction.
sure.
Then Ethereum, they had like a bounce up to 4.1K
Mhm.
and got rejected at like 4.2, I believe, if this is in USD.
Yeah,
And the all-time high was like 4.45,
yeah.
I think, in
Almost
US
there.
dollar. Yeah, almost there.
Yeah.
And out of all of the kind of like the top three kind of coins, Cardano is like kind of lagging behind, experiencing like a death cross versus Bitcoin. So what that means, we've discussed death crosses in the past on this podcast. It means that the short-term moving average closes below its long-term moving average. So it just basically means that people are buying less now than they did in the past. And if you compare that to Bitcoin, it creates a cross pattern on the charts, and that's basically a sign that interest is kind of like dropping and that you might get like a significant price drop. That's what they usually say. It's been true in the past for Bitcoin, but sometimes it's also just not true.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it doesn't have any effects. It's not really a position you care to trade about, but it's a signal of the market, and it's a bit of like,
Some people do. Some people love this death cross business.
yeah,
There's always like a lot of hype and loads of articles, about it. Whenever any coin goes into, prints this pattern.
yeah,
Yeah, the extent
no, absolutely,
to which they actually play out consistently is like very dubious,
yeah,
dubious
no,
statistic right there.
that's true. It's a bit dubious, and but I think it's also partially just like the amount of hype and news that circles around these kind of
Mhm.
like negative patterns, especially when it's like a top 10 cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
You just see like so much news because people will click on it because a lot of people are invested in the top 10
right.
cryptocurrencies, so
Mhm.
it's like a larger audience. But yeah, we also saw some different coins like Shiba Inu up a lot this week, 90% after like whales dumped on it previously, just crashing the price absolutely. And yeah, it's basically up 40% after this like major whale dump.
Yeah,
So yeah, good on the people who are still holding Shiba Inu, I guess, or bought at favorable price points.
yeah. Maybe it's the return of the meme coins.
Yeah,
Like whenever Bitcoin goes on this kind of bullish run, right? We always think of an impending, altcoin season. And like
yeah,
in our previous altcoin season, previous altcoin seasons, meme coins seem to reign supreme
yeah,
for some reason because they're good memes, But yeah, so we might see a return of maybe this Shiba Inu. What just happened with that is it's just a signal, that
yeah.
the return of the meme coins is imminent.
No, absolutely.
We'll
And
see.
then this, yeah, with all this bullish news that we kind of see, we saw that the ETF was approved,
Yeah.
and then we see that analysts like, yeah, like there's a bunch of analysts that hold 250,000 as their Bitcoin price target,
Mm.
even now with this correction, because of the amount of liquidity that will enter the crypto space because of the exchange traded fund. So yeah, overall a lot of bullish news, and you kind of see this always kind of trickle down to altcoins after Bitcoin has had its time to shine,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So what do you think? This ETF has been approved. What do you think it means for everything but Bitcoin? Do you think it will
Everything but
affect?
Bitcoin.
Yeah, because it's obviously a bullish signal for Bitcoin, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I think that this kind of institutional,
Mhm.
like, semi-approval
Yeah.
of yeah, well, an exchange traded crypto asset
Hmm.
shows like a major kind of shift
Right.
towards the legitimacy of cryptocurrency and like the adoption.
Yeah. I think aside from like the natural knock-on effects of Bitcoin going on bullish run, which we've just like talked about,
Hmm.
how altcoins then seem to make a run up and stuff. I think particularly top 10 cryptos are gonna see a huge, we'll see huge interest from institutions. Because
Hmm.
institutions, okay, so they've legitimized Bitcoin to, in a sense, like for themselves, right?
Yeah.
Through an ETF. That's how they want to engage with cryptocurrency. Sure, you have your Bitcoin ETF, but I think then that's going to open up sort of Pandora's box is not, but the open up things for institutions to get into you know coins like ETH, coins like ADA, and start getting into the nitty gritties of that and
Hmm.
of those two blockchains, and they could check out DeFi projects as well. So it just opens up, and I think why I say the top 10, it's because probably like the top 10 are the safest out of all
Hmm.
cryptos.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really a scientific statement, but
No, no, I
they're
get
top
your
10
point.
for a reason, and
Yeah.
I think they will garner a lot of interest in the coming months, and year from institutions. So institutions bring big money. Bitcoin's is going to see the effect of that, but also it'll trickle down to ETH, ADA, Polkadot, these kinds of. I think institutions will be very interested in
Hmm.
network, you know, based tokens and stuff like that.
That's true. And I think also, if you, I mean, if you've been on Twitter for the past while, right, you see a lot
Yeah,
of people talk about like hyperinflation. You saw Jack Dorsey
yeah, yeah, yeah.
tweet about hyperinflation, and I think that a lot of larger firms kind of have pushed this ETF as
Mhm.
kind of like a kind of worst case scenario hedging strategy, right? Like,
Right,
oh, let's just have make sure that we have an alternative to the US dollar.
right.
Um, if it's about hyperinflation, I mean, I think sure there's like a lot of money printing. I don't think that the management of the US dollar is as well sensible as it can be, but I think that yeah, basically if you say like hyperinflation is around the corner, I don't think it's true because US is like a very dynamic economy, and the US dollar is like in global demand and it's extremely useful. So I don't think that all of a sudden wishing for hyperinflation or expecting very imminent hyperinflation is the most rational approach.
Hmm.
But I do see that in the long term, you know, inflation at least will happen.
Hmm.
It's unstoppable, and I think
Yeah,
that that's also why now, out of all times, this ETF has been approved,
yeah.
and kind of like the interest in Bitcoin has surged.
Hmm.
So yeah.
I think we need to. I mean, not just we, but everyone needs to be aware of like asymmetrical um, landscape in terms of information that different investors are afforded or different individuals are afforded, right?
Hmm.
And if big billionaires and big institutions are starting to think about the effects, the potential, and the likelihood of hyperinflation and what that like might do to our society, the world, our economic systems and stuff.
Hmm.
I think if you're if you're aware of that and you're you know you then looking at the right information sources to deduce what you should do for yourself. It's always
Yeah.
it's never a bad idea to follow what big money is doing,
Yeah.
because they obviously have some information that you don't, which is why they're making those moves. Obviously, you can always think about the manipulation that goes on in markets and that, but with things like these broader strokes,
Hmm.
hyperinflation's coming, or there's a rather than taking it with a grain of salt, I think like these are things that like a lot of people should evaluate for themselves, because their money moves in relation to that could be very impactful, in the coming
Mhm.
years for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. I see a lot of this attitude, especially like on crypto Twitter, but
Mhm.
like that's not the most relevant.
Yeah.
But just with people in general who invest in cryptocurrency, that they kind of hope for hyperinflation. But I don't think you should hope for
Oh, well,
hyperinflation if you're
everyone's
in
screwed
crypto.
if you're.
Yeah, because you're basically it would mean that your whatever profit you made in the past few years, right? That it's kind of nullified because the profits you make are compared against the US dollar or the euro, right? So,
Yeah,
like, let's say you make a great, like, 70% gain
sure.
in the past year, um, and hyperinflation is 80%. Well, then basically, at the end of the
Mhm.
day, you're not as like successful. You've merely hedged or stayed the same.
Well,
The ideal
only if it's
situation
if
would be
only if you relate your connotate your gains in like a fiat
in
value,
US dollar.
because
Yeah,
then
of
you get
course.
these people who are like, yeah, one ETH is one ETH, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, and for those
Yeah.
people, in that scenario where we do enter hyperinflation, that their primary um, denotion of value is going to become their crypto. I mean, that's what they imagine, right?
Hmm.
That
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, hyperinflation happens. There's going to be this seismic shift towards people using, well, denoting their value in crypto.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it
No, that's
depends
true.
what mix of ideas that you have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, no, exactly.
yeah,
But I think like if you express it in US dollar or in euro,
yeah,
if you look at your kind of I don't know, your Binance exchange value
yeah,
or your trading value,
yeah,
then like hoping for hyperinflation is kind of like hoping for having fewer gains. I think the ideal
hmm,
situation for people would be like eventually a mass adoption, but when you're trading crypto, I think you want the US dollar or the euro to be stable so that the gains that you make are very like
hmm,
balanced against the like way above the current inflation level.
sure,
That's like why I think a lot of people who like invest in index funds. I mean,
hmm,
we've made fun of it a bit. It's like,
yeah,
oh yeah, you want to make just less than the
hmm,
inflation rate of a year.
yeah,
It's like in theory it's nice, but you want to balance it out. But
hmm,
you see an overall shift from what you're saying here with yeah, people are seeing like one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin,
yeah,
like let's not balance it out against fiat currencies. I think you also see it in like the legal system, right?
hmm,
You see it in Wyoming,
yeah,
where now more and more there's this move towards like heavier crypto adoption and seeing it more from like a crypto centric
hmm,
approach rather than balancing old structures against new structures.
yeah,
So we see a decentralized autonomous organization registry appear in Wyoming,
hmm,
and you just showed me this, and I think that that's crazy. It's great because a DAO, well, to register any form of company in America, before you needed to show specific named stock or like what do you call it, shareholders,
hmm,
and
yeah,
usually in like the section for standard of conduct, which basically discusses who is liable at the end of the day.
right,
The shareholders are kind of the scapegoats that take the hit if the DAO doesn't function properly.
yeah,
But Wyoming is extremely innovative with this by saying that unless otherwise provided for the in the articles of organization, no member of a decentralized autonomous organization shall have any fiduciary duty to the organization or any member, except that the member shall be subject to the implied contractual covenant of good faith. So that's basically saying nobody is like personally um, responsible, but the DAO is the central kind of legal entity that we deal with.
right,
And if there's any breach of good faith or fair dealing, then the person who breached that specifically will be targeted, but not the DAO or the entire organization that overarches this DAO
yeah,
will be held liable. And that is that's legal innovation right there, and that the amount of yeah, it's future future proofs kind of the way that the DAO will be legally organized, and it's crazy because that's exactly what I think. If you were in the bankless DAO, Tommy was in the bankless
yeah,
DAO, I was in the bankless DAO. if you looked at the discussion that was going on there, basically every time it was like, yeah, but the legal system just demands we need
Yeah,
our
that was a
scapegoat.
big discussion in the legal guild all the time.
Yeah,
Like, how do we register, or what is this?
yeah,
Like, how do we assume a legal body, essentially? Because if you want to operate as a company, in a sense, like an organization,
hmm,
right? Like, obviously, like a lot of DAOs, a lot of people have different takes on this, right? Like,
yeah,
obviously, there's some DAOs that are going to want to operate purely in the metaverse, and have no connection to this nation state, and they might not even need a connection to the nation state.
yeah,
But there are DAOs that are doing super interesting, like super complex, interesting, innovative things, like Klima DAO, where they have, like, carbon, what's it called, carbon credit backed script, like stable token, not stable token, but it's crypto backed token, carbon credit backed token, right? And
hmm,
they're doing different things in the energy market space, and those kinds of DAOs, I imagine, you know
yeah,
might want to assume a legal body, a personality, and like Wyoming is moving in the right direction with the way they're allowing for DAOs to be registered, and as you said before, like coming from it from a crypto centric position.
hmm,
But I think what's great about this is, like, okay, Wyoming's done this. What state next, or what country next? Because I think this is just the
exactly.
start of. Because if it's recognized in Wyoming, it's got to be recognized, you know,
In
equally
more
across the
places.
states.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't just have a company that has a legal body, legal personality that's only relevant for Wyoming.
yeah,
So it's this is probably just the start of a domino effect of different
hmm,
states adopting such a system, and
yeah,
just the evolution, because you need to start from somewhere, right? And,
yeah,
like, they probably didn't get it all right, in the way
hmm,
they've rolled this out. But that's where you're going to build from, and now you're
yeah,
already engaging these DAOs. So those DAOs know what DAOs should, and how, and they've been thinking about this, like, when we were in a DAO, like, we know how often or how intensely people are thinking about theories and
hmm,
philosophies about the Taoism.
yeah,
So there's a lot of intellectual discussion that can be brought to the state level,
yeah.
in terms of how they should be regulated, how they should be dealt with, because ultimately I think that's where you get the best regulation.
No, exactly. And I think the step forward is huge because it went
Yeah.
from basically you can't incorporate a DAO in a true sense, right?
Hmm.
To now you can. And that's
Right.
like a step from 0 to 100.
Exactly. No, yeah,
So yeah.
it's good.
And it's glad to see that like crypto adoption is becoming more and more mainstream. We
Hmm.
also saw Reddit now hiring people who are back-end developers for NFT platforms with at least 5 years experience, which is a bit wild, 5 years.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you
you got to
must
give
have
them
been
credit.
right there from the beginning.
Yeah, but
Wow.
like Reddit has been around and has been very lenient to crypto discussion on their platform and has allowed for a lot of stuff like user rewards, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
moons and the bricks,
Yeah,
I think. And
exactly.
like it just if they would allow NFTs on their platform or like incorporate NFTs in a certain way, it would just bring more and more utility to the NFT space. And I think that overall that's like a super bullish development on the end of Reddit. And
Cool.
I mean, their track record shows, right? They have been fairly lenient with crypto, and
Yeah.
they seem to not really be against it if they're hiring NFT developers.
Hmm. No, for sure. And it's like, it feels like everyone and their grandma is making an NFT platform. So there's Reddit, Coinbase, and there's already loads of NFT platforms. But it's interesting to me how how are each of these companies or organizations going to utilize um NFTs, or like how are they, what's their spin on an NFT platform, right?
Hmm.
Because Binance also has an NFT platform, and it's like, well, last time I looked, it wasn't very interesting, and no one really
Yeah,
cared about it, right? So I feel like, sure, if you're an organization that's going to have an NFT platform, it has to have like a spin to it that like actually makes it, like, actually gives people a reason to want to use your NFT platform. You
It
know,
needs to add more utility.
because why would you
Absolutely.
not just use the the Amazon of NFTs that already exists? Quite
Yeah.
frankly, you know what I mean. Like, why would you other if there isn't like a spin or there's some, you know, some
Hmm.
other reason? I think our idea of what an NFT platform should be should actually just be like stretched out a bit, because like, you know, an NFT platform doesn't just have to be like a marketplace
Hmm.
for NFTs. An NFT platform could be something else. It could be more social. It could be more.
Yeah.
It could be so many. It could be different things. You know, it's
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, but
No,
I
absolutely.
think it's interesting that, and awesome for NFTs, that so many platforms are popping up. I just want to see where is this going in terms of
Where's the
where
innovation,
is the
right? Now,
innovation.
now we see a lot of adoption and
Exactly.
replication. But I think that kind of sums up this episode, right? Like
Yeah.
we see the very early kind of roots of institutional adoption
Hmm.
of cryptocurrency and of kind of blockchain technology,
Yeah.
NFTs. We're seeing that start up. We're seeing ETFs being approved. We see platforms adopting to the existence of NFTs, and we see legal systems kind of embrace new legal forms that have appeared with the crypto revolution.
Yeah.
And I think that we're at the very early stage in this, and I think that that's kind of what we're experiencing now, and especially in these past few weeks. Like it's not as spicy of news as like, oh, Tesla allows for Bitcoin payments or blah blah blah, but I think it's more fundamental, and I think it's a lot more that you will see way more long-term effects of
Mhm.
this kind of structural approval
Yeah.
and acceptance and incorporation
Mhm.
than you would see of something like, oh, Tesla allows for epic pump of Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly.
So I
Yeah,
think,
this is a lot bigger than that. Oh man, it's
yeah,
crazy to think that was only months ago. I mean, it feels like ages ago, but
yeah,
it was really only just months ago, and how far the space has come and every things have developed and how we've
yeah,
grown in the space as well. Like, oh man, it's
it's
been a
been
wild
crazy.
ride.
Yeah, and I mean, it's we're at episode 28 now.
Oh yeah.
Remember episode 1?
Yeah, that was,
There was we were before any Tesla news happened.
that's true.
The space was a lot smaller, and
Exactly.
the future seemed a lot further away than it does now, right?
No, exactly. I think, I mean, if you'd go and ask us back then, like, is this how we saw everything pan out? We would probably just be like, no. We had
No,
no idea. I mean, people have no idea how things are going to roll out
no,
and develop. But, you know, if you're here for the ride, it's, you know, it's fun. It's a fun one.
yeah, and experience that ride with us. Follow us
Exactly.
on Twitter at Block Exploring Podcast, at Sabai Squared, at Otoko Crypto. And I think with that said, we'll wrap up this episode of the Block Exploring Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
Take it easy.